protocol would be to give a nice little background on him, but I don't even know much about him, which is perfect because we talked for the first time today, like as friends. So I'm very appreciative of that. But first of all, can I just tell you thank you for coming. This is my first time attending this or knowing about it, and I live west of the temple, so it's pretty sad. So literally like across the street. But I'm very honored to be participating in this event and to see the different cultural differences in the different tribes. I'm very amazed and appreciative of that, and to learn the different heritages. Very honored. So I'm gonna have to let Edgar talk about himself a little bit, but I will tell you that he is very qualified. One of the reasons why I chose him is that he taught a class in the combined release site and priesthood, family history, and had tears in our eyes because he thought of thought-provoking questions that I needed to reflect on. So without further ado, here's Edgar. I'm not even gonna attempt his last name.
Thank you. You know, they gave me this Pentium tag, but my shirt doesn't have a pocket, so I don't have a place to, but I'll cherish this for a long time. I'll just keep it and we'll go from there. Okay, so by trade, I'm a therapist. And so I like when people talk. So this is what we're going to do today. The topic which was presented to me was, what does it mean to be converted? Right? So I need a few volunteers. You know, it's so much fun for people to raise their hands without even knowing what they're volunteering about. Okay? So, yeah. So whoever is going to volunteer, I'm from Zimbabwe. I'm from Zimbabwe, yeah. So grab a piece of paper since you volunteered. Okay. So a little bit about me. So a little bit about myself. I am from Zimbabwe, and each time I talk to people, they're like, where is that? I'm like, oh, it's between China and Vietnam. And then they're like, what? No, it's right above South Africa. So I was born and raised there, came to the United States when I was a little bit older. That was Christmas Eve of 1999. When everyone was freaking out about Y2K, that's when I came here. And I went to BYU Hawaii. That's where I got my bachelor's degree. Then I was curious as to what Utah is like. So I moved to Utah after graduation. And lo and behold, I was like, let me go back to school. So I went back to school to get my master's degree in social work at the University of Utah. So after that, I then moved down to Gate Arizona. So currently I work as a therapist for a company that helps people with addiction problems. So, to my volunteers, I'm going to ask you to write down a question about today's topic. Any question that comes to your mind about today's topic. What does it mean to be converted and sanctified? I'll give you about 3-4 minutes. Just write a question that comes to your mind when you start to think about conversion and or sanctification. The reason I'm doing this is I choose a topic. And there's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes I feel like we could be discussing more on the same topic, but from the perspective of those that are in this group. So, write any question about conversion and sanctification. I can tell you this, it's interesting. Most, if not all, of your questions will be about the same thing. There will be a theme highlighted in your questions. So while you're writing, for those that volunteered while they are writing, let me start by saying this. Let me know who I'm talking to, first of all. How many of you are of the LDS faith? The majority? Okay. Okay. So it's good to always preach to the choir, right? And if you are not of the LDS faith, welcome. What we're going to talk about is stuff that not only pertains to those of the LDS faith, but to everyone. So, how many of you have ever been asked this question at church? Are you a convert? What does that mean, to be a convert?
Well, to me, it doesn't matter how long you've been going to church, because I've been around my whole life, but I was not converted until I was 19. So I got on my knees and worked hard and soul out and asked for forgiveness, that my heart needs to change, and I felt the love of Christ to totally change my heart, and I started to be the gospel.
So, in your response, you say, I was converted to, which means what? From
Not
to.
totally believing, totally knowing.
So there was a change there, right? So there was a change. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
I worked in the church, and I was in the military with the United States Marine Corps back in '69. And I was in Vietnam. I went through the car stuff in combat. I served one combat for Vietnam, and almost got killed over there. I never showed it to anybody, but that's a long story. And I came back, when I was going back to the world, we call it the world, because without the world was that. After coming back from Vietnam, I was an alcoholic, and I changed my habits to a drug killer, everything that you don't want to talk about, but I lived through it. And when I came back, I asked the Lord, give me somebody that would help me in my life, because I saved a lot of combat money, and I just sent it to my brother. And when I came back, I asked him, do you still have my money or my savings? He said, yeah, well, we've got all of it. We're all going to take something. So when I came back, I was pretty loaded. But I knew I was an alcoholic, and I didn't want to spend all of it. So the Lord has blessed me with this lady that I got married to. And we've been married over 50 years now. And it's a blessing to be here and to partake of this gospel.
So there was that word again, change, right?
Yes.
So converted is a process where we change from one state to another. But the other question from there is it a one-time thing? It's not. It's an ongoing thing. But sometimes we have this idea that it's a one-time thing. And once that happens, you're on this way. But we get converted through a process. And that process may happen more than once, over and over and over. So, let me have those papers back. Okay. Okay. So the first question we want to talk about is, how do I know I'm converted? How do I know I'm converted? So at what point does someone get to say, this is it? I think that process has happened. So let's take, for example, all of us, before we became members of the church, for those that remember, quote unquote, converts, or even those, like she said, were born in the covenant, there came a time when you noticed what? There were some behaviors that were happening. Like the brother just talked about what? Drinking. But something within us says what? Maybe I need something different. I need something different. So one of the questions was something to do with what's the first step to that process. So the first step is what? Identifying the thing that needs to change. Identifying that which needs to change. So, let's take, for example, a non-member and a member of the church. So for a non-member, they are converting into this faith. It's a process which starts with what? I like this message. But this message is saying what? There are certain things you have to leave behind in your lifestyle for you to be part of this. But I'll leave that for you to decide what this is, because it's different for everyone. So the first step is, I think I like what these missionaries are saying. You go to church, you visit, something within you is telling you what? I think I like this. This is where I belong. And sometimes when we're investigating the church, we sit there, we look around, we like certain things. Some not so much because we don't understand. So part of that conversion is to what? To educate ourselves. What am I getting into? But when it comes to things related to the gospel, to the church, to the religion, it's converting yourself to the teachings of the gospel. But does it mean we become perfect with everything? Does it mean we become perfect with everything? No. There are certain areas that all of us are LDS, most of us, I saw most hands going up, LDS, but each person in here is struggling with something, and there needs to be what? A change. So the first step is identifying that which needs to change. For example, let's say tithing, I struggle with tithing. It's not within me yet that when I get my paycheck, tithing is the number one thing I think about. How many people in our church do you think are that? A few, a lot, maybe. So, I may want to convert myself to what? To the testimony about tithing. So, the first thing, identify that which I want to change. I don't like using the word paying tithing, that phrase. I don't like using it personally. What do I use instead? I need to offer my tithes. Maybe that phrase will lead to what? To change of mindset. Because when we pay for something, what do we expect? Something. Right? But then if we feed our minds with this phrase, pay tithing, we're tattooing our brain to say what? Each time I do this, I should what? Get something. So I may want to say, I am offering my tithes every 2 weeks. Will that help me in the conversion? Maybe. So it's changing our mindset, the way we phrase other things, or certain things. Right? So, I just touched on what? Mindset. We have to change our mindset.
I think what comes before I think actually what comes before changing the mindset is that you want something different. You're ready for something different, and so then it's like, and it's a buildup of pressure. You start seeking, looking, you start talking, not to yourself, but maybe talking to God. Even if you don't know God, you're talking to the elements, and then eventually God says, well, here, let me give you a little bit of this, and you start finding things that fit. And I actually saw the missionaries walking through the mall, and I chased them down, because I felt that with my spirit. And really, you can't compel somebody to want to be converted. They have to feel it. And I had the opportunity once to move, and it was a big move to Maui. So I got a blessing, and in that blessing it said that Maui would be my refiner's fire. And holy smokes, I learned that every year of my life was another year that I could grow. And so we get a lifetime to figure ourselves out, and it's been like that for the past 22 years. I finally now feel refined to a certain extent. But, you know, being converted, that can be every day if you're challenged really hard. Or it could be every year, I'm gonna get better at this, and you set your own goal, you know, but, when you can make your weaknesses a strength, that's the only time I've ever felt sanctified, but you have to be careful not to relax within that, because you still have to be on point, you know, with all your growth. You have to hold that, you know, sacred, because that was your refiner's fire that you've been going through to keep that conversion, you know, healthy and to be able to hold that light of Christ.
Yeah. And you touched on a very important subject. I have stopped doing New Year resolutions. I stopped because I found out that it became a chore right around November, December. It became a chore. Where's my paper so I can just put something down? Ask me second week of January where that paper is, right? And so I have started doing this. Maybe it may help someone. It's not even on a yearly basis. I'll pick an attribute that I want to see a change in me. For example, patience. And for the next few days, weeks, months, I'm just focusing on patience. To see, let's say I'm driving and someone cuts me off. But because I'm thinking about that, for that week, patience, patience, patience. Guess what I stopped doing? Sign languages. We know the sign language I'm talking about. Right? And from there, my mindset was, maybe they're in a hurry more than I am. Let them go. But then I started to realize, oh my goodness, I'm experiencing a conversion. Does it make sense? I'm experiencing a conversion from someone who is so impatient, right, to someone exercising patience. And before I knew it, from driving, it went to what? People I work with. Patience, patience, patience. And then, when I was like, I think I'm getting better at this. How did I say I'm getting better at this? Because of the way I was responding to other people. Because the way I was treating other people using that attitude of patience. Then I said to myself, okay, what's the next one? Then I pick another attribute. For that week, those 2 weeks, that's all that is on my mind. How do I go from just doing this? And before I knew it, I was converting myself to certain things. So, here's another question. How do I help my adult children become reconverted? So I'm assuming these children, at some point, they were what? Doing what they were supposed to do. But because of A, B, and C, they kind of what? Strayed away. How can we help them become reconverted? Anyone?
Through your example. Through your example, when you're setting an example of whatever that is, maybe you're saying, how do I know my adult children are converted? Maybe you go to the temple regularly. It might be once a month, it might be once a week, it might be just as often as you can do that. And then when they see that example, maybe they will start to do that.
What if years go by, nothing is changing?
That's true, but in the process, what are you doing? Yourself, you're getting more converted. And so you're going to be able to find more answers how to help them.
Okay? Anyone else?
I'm a Native American and I'm Apache. I grew up as a dirt poor person, not well educated, but I made it through high school. And I joined the Marine Corps when I was back in 68, 69 when Vietnam was still going strong, and I wanted to go and help serve my country, so that's what I've done. When I joined, I served one combat tour in Vietnam. And I've been to Cambodia, and I've been to Thailand, and all the places that are all the hot spots. And I went through some hard stuff over there. And I served with a lot of different Americans, that not native, but white people, black and Mexican, and all the other native. But I enjoyed everything. Not enjoyed it, but I survived everything. And but when I came out, when I was getting out of the military, I talked to the Lord through all this hard combat I made, and all this time that I was saving all my money in all my combat pay, I was sending home to my brother. My brother was a sober man. He never drank, and that's what I wanted to do, stop drinking. And I was so sure of myself. And I talked to the Lord on my way home that if the Lord could give me somebody to help me manage my money and just to take a six pack of beer every month or every something like that. But anyway, I managed it, and the Lord gave me my wife. And I got married, and we've been married 50 years now. So we've been together long about 4 boys. But that really helped me. And I used to hitchhike a lot. I never did everything. I always used to, when I was hitchhiking, I used to see people going by with families, and I said one day, if I get possible, I could get blessed with the wife and the family and enjoy some of the stuff that they're doing. But I have to stop drinking too, and that doesn't help me a lot. But everything takes steps at a time, so. But our process is long now. It's been over 50 years now. I haven't get a drink for about 1981. I was converted to the church, and since then I've been in cold turkey, what you call it. But I'm proud of myself and my wife, and we're standing beside me, and I love her very much. And I'm thankful that I'm here to listen to you guys.
Yeah, so that was a conversion story, right? And so I'm glad that you got out of that lifestyle, and now family is more important to you. So going back to adult children, I agree with you. Example is the best teacher. But sometimes we have to understand that these adult children have choice. And there are some things that we want to happen now that may not necessarily happen at this point. But those adult children, the good thing is that light was presented to them at some point. They know what it is, but for reason A, B, C, they chose to do certain things. Does not make them less than us. In Heavenly Father's due time, those adult children, something will spark within them, and they will make the choices that we wish they could make. But it's all about them having that greatest gift of what? Choice. And at the same time, not our time, but a time that fits for them.
First of all, my husband had no money when I met him. So don't think that. You know, I think Elder Eckelhog said it well earlier, that conversion is a process, and for some it takes a long time, which is true. For some it's a lifetime struggle. With our children, we have 4 sons, and each one of them have had their own challenges in life. Even though, like me, they grew up in the church. My father was a branch president of our branch in San Carlos when I was a young girl. And I have older sibling that went on a mission. She went on a mission in Alberta, Canada. And there was 12 children, a lot of us. And I think nowadays, our children, they have it even harder. And it's gonna get harder. There's so much out there that's bad, you know, on social media, friends that aren't in church, because when you live on an Indian reservation, many of church friends just aren't there that are LDS. That support system is just not there for them. And so we become their support system as parents. And so I have one of my older sons, he fell away from the church, and he was trying to come back over the years. And I would just literally just tell him, read the Book of Mormon. Read the Book of Mormon. And it'll help you. It'll help you strengthen your testimony. And I don't think this young man really had ever read it, other than having lessons, you know, at church, or when we had family home evening, we would touch on it. And maybe that was the only exposure that he had. And my husband and I are interpreters for the church. We go to the general conference, every conference, and we interpret the talks from English into Apache, for San Carlos Apache tribe and White Mountain Apache tribe. And during one of these general conferences a few years ago, we asked him, why don't you guys come with us, him and his wife and children? And we said, you know, the first excuse they give you is, I have no gas money. Well, we'll provide everything. We'll provide the hotel, we'll provide the gas money, we'll provide the food, so there's no excuse whatsoever. So he said, okay, we'll go. So they traveled up there, and he was still struggling with a lot of issues. And he told us that when it came time to go into the general conference, inside the conference, he said that one of the ushers asked him, do you want a language? And my son said, okay. And then asked him, well, which language do you want? And my son said, Apache. So they got him one of those earphones, put it on the right channel, Apache channel. And he said, as I sat there and I started listening to you guys, and he said, I heard my dad speak. And I heard him speak in Apache. And he said that it just had this great power come over me because I was hearing the gospel in my language. And he said this great spirit just really took over me. And that was when I believe he truly became converted, because it changed his life from that day forward. And he came back to church. So it's different for everybody.
It's different for
It's different for everybody.
Let me ask you this. You started talking about the Book of Mormon, right? There are two people in the Book of Mormon we read about their complaints. Who were those two guys? Laman and Lemuel. I don't know if I missed some pages, but correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't read about them turning around and when did they turn around and say, Father, we're going to do everything you say? I haven't read that part. So how did Lehi and Sarah think about their sons? But they did everything they were told to do. Father Lehi did everything. That was an example, right? But sometimes what I'm trying to say is, maybe not in our lifetime. Children may be just like those two. But you as a parent, you are doing everything you're supposed to do. Is it your fault? No. But all we can do is what? Something that is within our control. Then we leave everything for them. I haven't read anywhere where it said Laman and Lemuel became this and this and this. I haven't read that. Because it was their choice. Are they going to be the same in the afterlife? You and I don't know. And as we speak, maybe they've gone through their conversion. We don't know. So, it's okay. As a parent, it's okay. Even when your sons and daughters seem to be what? On the hard side.
I'm going to add something real quick. I think one big element is acceptance, and the acceptance being where the person's at. So as a parent, I would say, we're striving to live our life. We've lived our life probably, so you understand that there's a process. And then for your grown children, I think the biggest thing is being able to accept them where they're at, not where you want them to be at. And if you apply it to the principles of the gospel and with Jesus Christ, we know, and this is what I love about the Easter pageant, you know that he always ministered to those that were not perfected, those that were ailing, those that were sick, those that were dying, and performed his miracles to change the non-believers to believers. So if you have the faith, or we have the faith, that it's important to love unconditionally, then the lame and the limbless will turn their hearts. Not always, but they will turn their hearts. Because as we have our own families, what we chose them, as Scripture is right, that we chose our family, and the biggest adversary pool is when we go against them, when we can't love them, when we can't accept them. That's what I think anyway.
Yeah. So, there's
I got in here late, but you guys know where you're coming from. The challenge of raising children. I've raised raised my kids for over 20 years, single parent. Through prayer, and he said that you pray to have your children to be at a certain point, or wish that they were at a certain point. They could be drug or alcohol addiction, or just plain silliness. My youngest one, Caboose, lives here in Scottsdale. She had things rolling very well for her, a job, full-time school. So one morning she decided to drive toward Payson, that straight road out there, and somehow both drivers of both cars got confused and ended up having a head-on collision. And I didn't see the car, but she said, "Dad, I could see the pavement right by my foot." It was a pretty bad crash. Broke her tibia and fibia, broke her thumb and her pinky on her left hand. But to make a long story short, purposely I hung back. I'm a dad that spoils my girls, especially. I have 2 girls, and now the granddaughter comes along and she gets spoiled left and right. But my point is, I let her figure it out on her own, and it's hard to be the coach on the side when you're running down and forth from the one end of the basketball court to the other. But in my case, it was always hold on, and see what happens in the next hour or the next half day or the next day. And I've been through that process for, I'd say, 20 times, honestly. With the last one, her name is Summer. So lately, I don't ride Uber quite a bit, but she figured it out that she's got a job, and the money that she earns just goes to her transportation, bus, Uber, just to get to work. And so she was making $0. So she looked for another job, got her another job, and so now she's at home. She's going to finish up at U of A. So things are looking up for her. But if I figured, and looking back, I thought, what if I stepped in? I might have messed up the Lord's plan. And so I'm happy with it. I get to see her tonight for another round of sandwiches. So we don't get down here too often. This is my mom right here. And in my grown-up years, her words, I can still remember going off to a football game. My buddy was waiting out there on me, and she would say, "Son," before I went out the door, she would say, "I trust you." That was a weight on me all evening long. To get home, to step into the house without nothing happening was, I thought that was pretty good. So I do the same thing with my children, my grandchildren too, and give them, although they, somebody said, being accepted is, we've all been there. Just a real quick, another short story here. My grandfather is a Southern Youth from Ignacio up by Durango. When I was about 6 or 7 years old, I was playing with matches, and we get tribal wood. So he had just gotten his tribal wood stacked really nice, and I went experimenting around the house. I found the matches, so I put them in my pocket, went out, to the backyard and found a wood pile, and I thought, if I can just get a spark and learn how to get this match lighted. I did, but some of the bark caught on fire, and it just went so fast, and before I knew it, the smoke was going up into the sky, and fire trucks were coming. I could hear the sirens. So my father was not a very good teacher, but he was, with words, he was more of the old style belt type, or a snap in the back of your ear. Anyway, so my grandpa was my greatest teacher. He took me back. My father was reaching for his belt, and my grandpa, his name was Olgie Thompson. So we're sitting on the steps, and he says, "Boy," he says, "come here, Ovich," he used to call him. So he told me to be motioned over. He was a blind man. And he motioned also to my father to step back. And he says, it wasn't necessarily his words, it was the way he put his large hands on my shoulder and gave me a gentle squeeze and told me, "Don't play with fire, grandson." So those are some of the things that I learned in my early childhood, and share that with my children, and hopefully they share their compassion enough to allow or give that space to their own children so that they could figure it out for themselves.
Yeah. So your story reminds me of a talk, I don't know if any of you remember it. It was President Monson, I think. He talked about little boys starting a fire in the Provo Canyon. Something similar to your story. So I think you also highlighted something when it comes to conversion with the people around us. We have to communicate. We have to communicate. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen a lot anymore. Most of the time, when I have an LDS client struggling with any kind of mental health, substance use, 90% of the time, it comes down to one thing. There is no communication in the home. So something is a challenge to all of us. The fact that we see each other, mostly on Sundays, dressed nicely, does not mean all is well. Now church is how many hours? 2. I was joking earlier on with you when I said, if you stand outside of any church building, if church starts at 9, at 8:30 the parking lot is empty. Am I lying? The parking lot is empty. 8:45, 5 minutes to 9, it's full. People are sitting where they're supposed to sit. Go outside 10 minutes after 11. If that building only takes 1 ward, that parking lot is what? Empty. I think that's an area where we can do better. Take some time on a Sunday to say hi to someone. Just show some level of concern for them. It will help their conversion. But we're so busy that the communication is not there anymore. That's something we can do better. Communicate, communicate, communicate. how do we understand what conversion is? That's another question. How do we understand what conversion is? And are we talking about conversion as in church or in life in general? That was the other question. We're here on a church setting, kind of, right? So the conversion we're talking about is on the church side. But it can be on anything. We can convert ourselves to communicating more. We can convert ourselves to be kind, more kind to other people. That's conversion. Someone talked about the pageant. I was there last night. It's true, Christ was, it's not that he was not concerned, but he ministered more to what? To those who were considered less than. And when we talk about conversion, we're talking about even to those that are considered what? Or may feel less than. We can help their conversion stories by being kind to them. So, my time is up, but I'll tell you this. I'll refer you as my people. Why?
I come from the reservation, and we're mostly all native, and we don't all go to church together, but we have people, a small amount of people that come